Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first official episode that I have on here. I've been thinking of doing this for the longest and I just haven't done it. So I thought, you know what, let me just start it now, because if I don't start now, I'll never ever start. But I want to thank you guys first and foremost for tuning in with my content. I greatly appreciate it because I talk a lot. And for you to spend your time invested in consuming my content, it is greatly, sincerely, and authentically appreciated. So without further ado, I want to talk today to you guys a little bit about what I've learned from being someone who was avid in hookup culture. For quite some time, I was engaging in random and casual hookups with women. This was first and foremost when I had moved out here to Las Vegas. I'm originally from Stockton, California, and when I moved out here, I was doing the whole random hookups for a little bit, not gonna lie, for about a little over a year. And one of the main things that I learned from doing hookup culture was people do not care about you. They don't care to get to know you. They only care to experience you. And that is because you are in a situation and in a dynamic to where people are actively objectifying you. And that's not for everyone. I understand that it's not for every single person. So if you are going to decide to do hookup culture, I always tell people, make sure that you're being safe, make sure that you're being cautious, make sure that you're being responsible, smart, and honest about things. And also take into consideration the possibility that this can weigh down on your mental health and your emotional well-being if you do it for a long enough time. Another thing that I realized from hookup culture is the more people who you hook up with, the lonelier you can feel. And that is because you have all these people in your life who you're doing things with on an intimate level. But when it comes down to it, when you're feeling sad, when you're feeling angry, when you're going through something, you're struggling mentally or emotionally, those people who are there hooking up with you and sleeping with you, they're not going to be there when it matters. This is also when I realized that it truly is about quality over quantity. Because what's the point of me having 10, 15 women in my immediate circle who I'm talking to and sleeping with if none of those women are there when it actually matters? And I had to learn that the hard way. Because the most amount of women, this isn't even to brag, this is just to exemplify the point that I'm trying to make here. The most amount of women who I was talking to at the same time was like 13 women. Now, they all knew I wasn't lying to any of them. That's one thing about me. I've never lied to women, manipulated them to sleep with them or any of that stuff. I think that's very much loser behavior and that's pathetic. If you have to manipulate a woman to get something from her, you just don't got it like that. Plain and simple. So the women knew that I was just there having fun, casual, hookups and whatnot, no strings attached. They were also there for the same reasons, so it worked out perfectly. But it is very time consuming, and the more women that I was actively involving myself with, the lonelier that I felt. So that's something else to take into consideration, because there's nothing worse than being with someone physically who makes you feel lonely. That is one of the worst things. Something else that I learned from hookup culture and being an active participant in it is your mental and emotional well-being can take a toll for the downside. If you do it for long enough, it can really affect you, because what you're doing essentially when you're engaging in hookup culture is you're actively putting yourself out there to where other people are going to objectify you. You've already objectified yourself by putting yourself in that situation. So someone else objectifying you through a long enough time, give it enough time, and you will start to feel less human. And it'll take a toll not only on your mental and your emotional health, but also on your self-esteem and on your confidence. Your confidence will start to deteriorate and it'll start to lessen because you are now feeling like just someone who's being used. And that's really what it comes down to. When you're doing the whole hookup culture thing, trust me, I've been there, I've done that. Essentially, people are just using you for their instant gratification and for their selfish desires. And you're using them the same way. So you can't really get mad at them for that. You can't get mad at somebody for objectifying you if, once again, you're already objectifying yourself by putting yourself in that situation. That's why it can be unhealthy. Now, I understand that in most cases, hookup culture is simply a phase for most people. It's a phase that doesn't really last an entire lifetime. It typically lasts a few months, maybe a year at most. For most people, it doesn't last a lot. And there's actually studies that have been done on this by the CDC. The CDC came out with one study, and they showed that people who were active participants in hookup culture were able to flip their life around and to get in healthy marriages and in healthy relationships. Because for most people, it simply is a period of time in which they're having fun, exploring themselves, exploring their options, exploring their sexuality, seeing what it is that truly turns them on, turns them off, seeing what really gets them going. And that's really what it comes down to. So a lot of people think, oh, you were in hookup culture, now you're screwed. Essentially, you're fucked, so to speak, because you can no longer bond with anyone else. That's simply not true. That is not in accordance with the empirical data or the empirical information that we know of from the studies. And it's also important to talk about the reasons as to why people get in hookup culture in the first place. A lot of people will tell you that only the broken people are getting in hookup culture. Only the broken people are out here doing that. Only people who are they have unresolved trauma and issues that they haven't dealt with will do that. That's simply not the case. That's not true. And I mean, it can be the case for some people, of course, don't get me wrong. But in a lot of cases, what we see is people who are engaging in hookup culture, they simply see it as a outlet of exploring their body, an outlet of exploring what it is that they truly like. And you got to think about it, from a neurological standpoint, there's a lot going on in a simultaneity that occurs when you're hooking up with someone that makes you feel extremely desired like nothing else. When you're there fully stripped of your clothes, you're naked with another human being that's also naked. There is no other form of desire that is more intimate and more intense than that. And for a lot of people, unfortunately, this is a form of validation, because some people seek validation through hookups because they don't really know how to seek it any way else. And when you think about it, it's kind of sad, because I believe that there are other forms of validation that people can seek that are more on the healthy route. But unfortunately, some people just hook up because that is the greatest form of validation for them. And that can come from a series of events throughout their upbringing. Maybe as they grow older, they experienced a few things to where they never really felt wanted nor desired. So now that they're hooking up with someone, that intimacy and that level of passion makes them feel desired like they've never felt desired before. In turn, that can also be psychologically addictive, because there's a lot of chemicals that we release neurologically at a simultaneity in which those chemicals will cause us to be somewhat attached to the person who we're engaging in that intimate activity with. So there's a lot to it from a neurological standpoint as well. People don't really take these things into consideration for a lot of reasons. It can be plainly and simply a lack of education, ignorance, willful ignorance, of course. It can be that they have certain preconceived notions about hookup culture that they don't really want to get rid of, because that causes them to look outside of their framework and outside of their perspective. And a lot of people like to hold on to their beliefs, as you guys already know this. They don't really like to have their ideas questioned, because that takes some level of mental strength to look outside instead of looking from something that you currently already believe to know. So there's a lot of reasons as to why people do the whole hookups. Ultimately, I understand that it's not for everyone, and I know this because not everyone is fit nor able to do hookup culture in a casual sense. Some people can do it, not everyone can, and I totally understand that. If you're someone who catches feelings fairly quickly for another person who you're doing intimate things with, and when I say intimate things, I don't just mean sex. I also mean conversations, dates, talking with them, getting to know them. These are all things that are intimate. So if you find yourself to be someone who gets attached fairly easily to someone who you're being intimate with, don't do hookup culture. It is not for you. And I understand that you might want to have a little bit of fun here and there, but there's people who need a connection. I myself, I'm one of those now. Now I'm a demisexual who won't do a random casual hookup unless I've connected emotionally and mentally with the woman who I'm talking to. And I know that a lot of you are like that as well. And if you are that kind of person who needs a connection before you hook up or even get touchy with someone, hookup culture, plainly and simply, is not for you. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be for everyone. Some people can do it. Some people have the ability and capacity to view hookup culture and hookups as simply mere pleasure. A lot of men can do it. I've known women who can do it as well. I've had a few friends with benefits throughout my past. It all culminated in a very healthy way because there was mutual understanding. There was a lot of open communication. There was mutual ground to where we built from that mutual ground. And fortunately, we were able to do what we did in a very mature way. But I know that this is not the case for every person because some people do get attached and they do develop some level of emotion and some types of feelings for the person who they're being intimate with and the person who they're talking to. That's totally normal because it's I would say, part of human nature to feel something for someone who you really like and something for someone who you're doing a lot of intimate things with. Don't feel bad about it. If you wear your heart on your sleeve, continue to wear it on your sleeve. Don't feel bad about that, but take these things into consideration because hookup culture is not for every single person. It's just not. And if it's not for you, don't play with fire if you don't want to get burned. Trust me. And one last thing that I wanted to say about hookup culture is if you believe in God or you're religious, spiritual in any way, shape, or form, in any capacity, it might not be for you either. Because when you try to associate the religious, the pure with hookup culture, you're going to have a disaster. It is a recipe for a disaster. It's not going to turn out well because those two things should be totally separate. They have to be separated and distinctively categorized into two separate things, because if not, you're going to associate all this ideal of religion with hookups, and that's just not good because you're going to end up confused. And you want to leave the casual with the casual and the spiritual with the spiritual, the religious with the religious, the casual with the casual. You don't want to mix those two. I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, the problem with hookup culture is a lot of people, God doesn't want us to live that way. That's your first problem. Do not invoke some sort of religion, some sort of spirituality onto the casual, because the casual should be kept with the casual and the spiritual should be kept with the spiritual. It's important to distinctively categorize those two so you can get the best understanding of what those two things truly are. A lot of people will confuse those two and they'll conflate them and they'll attempt to make them coexist. Oh, you can't have those. Yeah, well, of course you can't have those two. They're two separate things. It's literally impossible for them to coexist. You have the casual and the spiritual. It just doesn't happen like that. So that'll wrap it up for this video and this episode. If you stuck around till the end, genuinely speaking, I sincerely appreciate it. And I will try to make more content like this. If you came from TikTok, let me know. Drop a comment down and I'll make sure to check it out. Make sure to like it. Like I said, this is my first episode on YouTube. And I'm going to start making these videos that are a little bit more longer format, in case you guys are out and about at the gym or something and you want to listen to these videos, or you're going for a walk, wherever it may be. I've had quite a bit of people tell me to make a podcast and start making longer format videos. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now with this video. And in essence, thank you guys for everything. I really appreciate it. I couldn't be here without you, without your support. And your support there's no words to explain my gratitude for how I feel toward your guys' support. So again, make sure to smash that subscribe button if you like this video. Make sure to hit the like, share this video, whatever the case may be. Push it out there so that the algorithm can push it to other people and other people can listen to these messages, because I do believe that it's important for us as human beings to share healthy perspectives when it comes to these topics. And then more than anything, because I myself am someone who understands the experience since I've been down that route. I understand the experience and I can relate my experiences with you guys, so that we can all have a mutual understanding, or at bare minimum, a healthy perspective of what these things are. So once again, thank you guys. Much appreciated. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.